Have you ever felt a chill in your gut around someone you thought you could trust, but couldn't quite place why? That quiet unease isn't always imagination, it's your mind whispering warnings about the hidden danger in your life. There are people who wear smiles like armor, who wrap themselves in charm and kindness, yet behind that mask, their intentions are sharp, calculated, and toxic. Most of us want to believe the best in people. It feels safer, warmer, easier to assume that everyone around us shares the same heart we carry. But the truth is, not everyone comes with honesty or goodwill. Some people exist to manipulate, to control, and to take without giving. They aren't just difficult or selfish. They can be genuinely harmful in ways that ripple through your life, shaking your confidence, your peace, and your sense of self. Recognizing them early is not just wisdom, it is survival. It's easy to dismiss that feeling, to convince yourself that your intuition is overreacting. You might even question your own judgment when the evidence isn't obvious. That's exactly what they count on. The subtlety of evil is its camouflage. It moves in small, almost invisible ways. A half-truth here, a guilt-laden request there, a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. If you ignore it, it quietly builds tension, confusion, and emotional weight until one day you realize you've been manipulated, cornered, or drained. And the worst part is that often it's too late to undo the damage without significant effort and inner work. But here's the promise you need to hear right now. Awareness is power. Once you understand the signs, once you open your eyes to the subtle patterns, you reclaim control over your life. You gain the ability to see clearly, to protect your energy, and to make choices that honor your worth. That's why staying with this journey matters. By learning to recognize the 5 critical signs of an evil person, you are equipping yourself with tools to prevent pain, restore peace, and build the kind of relationships that lift you rather than drain you. You are giving yourself the chance to walk confidently through the world, guided by instinct, clarity, and self-respect. Imagine a life where you no longer second-guess every interaction, where trust isn't a weapon used against you, and where your energy is no longer sapped by hidden agendas. That life isn't a dream, it is entirely within reach. Every moment you spend understanding these warning signs, every insight you absorb, is a step toward freedom, strength, and emotional safety. You owe yourself this clarity. You owe yourself the courage to face the uncomfortable truths, because what lies beyond that courage is not fear. It is power. It is clarity. It is control over your own destiny. Stay with me through this exploration. By the end, you won't just recognize danger. You'll feel empowered to confront it, to shield yourself, and to live fully without the weight of manipulation or betrayal. The path to clarity begins the moment you choose to open your eyes, and right now, that choice is yours. To truly protect yourself, you must first understand what you are facing. An evil person is not always obvious. They do not announce themselves with warning signs or flashing lights. Instead, they operate beneath the surface, blending in, wearing masks of warmth, charm, or even vulnerability. Their true nature is hidden, wrapped in layers of deception designed to disarm and confuse, but underneath that carefully constructed exterior lies a pattern, a consistent drive to manipulate, control, and dominate, often at the expense of your peace, your confidence, and your very sense of self. Recognizing this is not about fear or paranoia, it is about clarity, self-respect, and survival. It is about giving yourself the power to see what others might miss and to act decisively before damage takes root. These people thrive on the moments when your attention drifts, when your guard falls, and when your instinct is silenced by kindness or politeness. They know how to exploit empathy, how to twist generosity into obligation, and how to make you question your own reality. This is not your weakness. It is the predictable human tendency to trust, to hope for the best, to believe in the goodness of others. That instinct is a gift when used wisely, but it can become a vulnerability when someone is determined to use it against you. The more you understand their methods, the more you regain the balance that allows trust to be a choice, not a weapon aimed at your heart. The emotional cost of ignoring these signs is profound. Every small manipulation chips away at your confidence. Every lie, every act of subtle cruelty leaves invisible bruises that accumulate into self-doubt and anxiety. You start questioning your judgment, your memory, your worth, and eventually you may find yourself apologizing for simply existing in your own truth. This is the quiet power of evil. It erodes strength without ever raising a hand. But here is the truth that can liberate you. No one can take away your power without your consent. The moment you recognize the pattern, the moment you name the behavior for what it is, you reclaim control. You are no longer a passive target. You are a conscious observer, capable of making choices that protect and elevate your life. Understanding the psychology behind their actions changes everything. It allows you to see their manipulation not as a personal failure, but as a reflection of their own inner void, their own need for control, and their own disregard for the well-being of others. This awareness brings freedom. It dissolves the confusion, the guilt, and the fear that they rely on to maintain power over you, and it replaces those feelings with clarity, courage, and actionable insight. You begin to recognize the patterns in real time, to respond with precision, to set boundaries without hesitation, and to trust your instincts with unwavering certainty. Every step you take in understanding the subtle, destructive nature of these people is a step toward liberation. You are building armor, not from anger or vengeance, but from knowledge, awareness, and self-respect. You are preparing yourself to reclaim your energy, your focus, and your peace of mind. You are learning to see the truth, and in that seeing you find power, confidence, and a freedom that no manipulation can ever take from you. The first step is awareness, the second is clarity, and the third is action. Action rooted in courage, guided by intuition, and fueled by the unshakable belief that your life, your mind, and your heart are yours alone. It's not enough to simply recognize the danger. You must understand why it is so easy to fall into their trap. The human mind is wired to seek connection, to trust, to hope that others share the same values and intentions we do. This natural inclination is a strength, a gift that allows love, cooperation, and growth. But when it meets someone who thrives on deception, it becomes a vulnerability. Exploit your desire for trust, twisting kindness into compliance, empathy into confusion, and hope into manipulation. You may find yourself questioning your own instincts, wondering if you are imagining the signs, doubting your memory, or blaming yourself for problems that are not yours to carry. That doubt is exactly what they rely on to maintain control. Understanding this does not make you weak. It makes you powerful. Once you see the mechanics of manipulation, once you recognize the ways in which they prey on your natural instincts, you reclaim authority over your perception. You are no longer at their mercy. You begin to notice patterns in behavior, subtle shifts in tone, inconsistencies in words and actions that once would have slipped by unnoticed. Every time you recognize a manipulation, your clarity grows, your confidence strengthens, and the power they once held over you diminishes. You learn to trust not only your mind, but your instincts, those silent alerts that have always been guiding you, whispering warnings that you were too polite or too hopeful to hear. The emotional toll of ignoring this awareness can be devastating. Manipulation, lies, and subtle cruelty chip away at your self-esteem, leaving invisible scars that can take years to heal. You begin to feel drained, anxious, even anxious in your own life, as if you are carrying a weight that belongs entirely to someone else. Every encounter becomes a test of your patience, your judgment, and your ability to maintain composure in the face of hidden agendas. Yet the power to change that is within you. The moment you recognize the patterns and choose to act, the moment you set your boundaries firmly and without hesitation, you reclaim the energy that has been stolen and transform it into strength. The mind of an evil person is often a labyrinth of calculated actions designed to confuse and dominate. By studying their patterns, by observing their methods, you gain insight that is both protective and liberating. You learn to see the subtle red flags, to identify behaviors that signal manipulation, and to respond with precision rather than emotion. That precision is your armor. That clarity is your weapon. And the more you practice seeing the truth, the less power they hold, until eventually their influence is reduced to nothing more than a shadow that no longer touches your life. Every insight you gain, every moment you dedicate to understanding, observing, and trusting yourself builds resilience. You are learning to navigate the world with discernment, to protect your mind and heart from those who would harm, and to reclaim the confidence that is your birthright. Awareness transforms fear into courage, confusion into clarity, and doubt into power. The person who once seemed able to manipulate, control, or diminish you now encounters someone awake, aware, and unshakable. You are no longer a passive observer in your own life. You are the force that shapes it, guided by truth, grounded in self-respect, and fueled by an unwavering commitment to protect the life, energy, and peace that are yours alone. One of the most dangerous tools an evil person wields is charm. It is not blunt or aggressive. It is subtle, magnetic, and intoxicating. It draws you in, disarms suspicion, and makes you want to believe in their goodness. You might think that charm is harmless, even enjoyable, but in the hands of someone with selfish or malicious intent, it becomes a weapon. They use it to manipulate perception, to hide their true motives, and to create a sense of obligation or loyalty that does not serve your highest good. Recognizing charm for what it truly is, not as a reflection of your failure to see the truth, but as a calculated tool designed to influence you, is a profound step toward liberation. It allows you to separate admiration from manipulation, connection from control, and warmth from deception. The danger is amplified because we are wired to respond to charm with trust. The human brain loves patterns of positivity, friendliness, and social approval. When someone smiles, compliments, or flatters us, it triggers chemical responses that lower our guard, relax our defenses, and increase feelings of connection. These responses are natural, automatic, and unavoidable, but they can be exploited. An evil person understands this instinct deeply. They know how to deploy charm selectively, how to create moments that feel intimate or personal, and how to use these moments as leverage to manipulate, confuse, or dominate. Once you understand this, you see that the fault was never yours. Your mind is simply doing what it was designed to do. The power comes from learning to see the signs and to respond consciously rather than react unconsciously. When charm is used as a tool for manipulation, it creates a complex emotional environment that is difficult to navigate. You may find yourself drawn in, captivated, or even addicted to their approval while simultaneously feeling uneasy, suspicious, or drained. That tension is deliberate. It keeps you off balance, questioning your instincts, and doubting your judgment. But that tension is also the key to your awareness. Your discomfort is a signal, a guidepost pointing to the behaviors and patterns that require attention. When you choose to listen to it, rather than silence it, you reclaim authority over your emotions, your thoughts, and your decisions. You begin to see charm for what it is, a mask, not a truth, and a tool you no longer need to fear. Understanding this mechanism gives you a profound advantage. You are no longer a passive recipient of influence. You are an active observer, able to detect the subtle cues, the inconsistencies, and the calculated warmth. You learn to evaluate actions, not words, and to prioritize patterns over isolated moments. This awareness transforms the landscape of your relationships. It allows you to discern sincerity from deceit, support from manipulation, and genuine care from self-interest. Every time you apply this insight, your confidence grows, your intuition strengthens, and your sense of inner power expands. The mastery of recognizing charm as a weapon is not about cynicism, it is about clarity, protection, and liberation. It is about choosing to honor your energy, to safeguard your heart, and to operate from a position of truth rather than vulnerability. By seeing charm for what it really is, you are building an unshakable foundation of self-respect, discernment, and courage. You are preparing yourself to navigate the world with eyes wide open, capable of forming connections that uplift and protect, while avoiding those that manipulate, drain, or diminish your spirit. You are becoming a force of awareness, resilience, and empowered choice, and in that power, you find freedom that no deception can ever touch. One of the most insidious signs of an evil person is their use of manipulation to control how you feel, think, and act. It is not always loud or overt. Often it is quiet, calculated, and invisible to the casual observer. They create situations designed to provoke guilt, doubt, or insecurity, subtly steering your decisions to serve their needs rather than your own. Every word, Every gesture and every expression can be a tool, carefully deployed to influence your perception, shape your behavior, and bend your reality. The danger lies in its subtlety, because it feels familiar, because it often mimics concern, advice, or guidance. You may not recognize it until the patterns have already taken root, quietly undermining your confidence and your autonomy. Manipulation thrives on your willingness to doubt yourself. It preys on your empathy, your desire to understand others, and your hope that people are acting with good intentions. That desire is noble. It is what allows you to connect, to love, and to trust, but it can also be exploited. When someone consistently pushes your boundaries, twists your words, or makes you feel responsible for their happiness or anger, they are training your mind to prioritize their needs over your own. It creates a psychological trap. You begin to question your judgment, to apologize for feelings that are valid, and to expend energy defending choices that should never require justification. Recognizing this pattern is transformative. It is the moment when doubt begins to dissolve and clarity starts to take root. Once you understand the mechanics of manipulation, the power dynamic shifts. You see the intent behind the actions, the strategy behind the words, and the goal behind the emotional pressure. This awareness does not require confrontation or aggression. It requires observation, discernment, and the courage to honor your own perception. When you stop internalizing the manipulation, you reclaim your energy, your clarity, and your sense of self. Every interaction becomes a measure of alignment with your values rather than a battlefield of influence. You begin to respond consciously rather than react unconsciously, and in that response lies your freedom. The emotional liberation that comes from recognizing manipulation is profound. No longer are you pulled into guilt, shame, or self-doubt. No longer do you feel responsible for someone else's moods, desires, or control. You reclaim your space, your voice, and your choices. You begin to see relationships for what they truly are. Connections that either nurture and support your growth, or drain and distort your sense of reality. And once you can see this clearly, you no longer accept toxicity as normal, you no longer excuse cruelty disguised as concern, and you no longer allow someone else's agenda to dictate your peace. Understanding manipulation is not just a skill, it is a shield. It equips you to navigate life with awareness, to protect your emotional energy, and to approach every interaction with confidence and clarity. You no longer feel vulnerable to hidden agendas. Because you see them before they take hold, you begin to act from alignment with your values, grounded in self-respect and empowered by insight. Each time you recognize manipulation and refuse to internalize it, you strengthen your resilience, sharpen your discernment, and build a life where your peace and your power are never negotiable. This is the freedom that awareness brings, the ability to live fully, authentically, and courageously, immune to the invisible chains of deceit and control. A hallmark of an evil person is their skill at gaslighting, making you doubt your own reality, memory, or perception. It is one of the most psychologically destructive tactics because it attacks the foundation of who you are, your confidence, your judgment, and your truth. You begin to question yourself constantly, wondering if your instincts are wrong, if your memory is faulty, or if your feelings are exaggerated. This is not a reflection of weakness, it is a reflection of a deliberate effort to destabilize you. Understanding this is the first step toward reclaiming control. The moment you recognize the pattern, you begin to restore your inner compass and trust in your own perception. Gaslighting works because it targets your mind at its most vulnerable points. It thrives on doubt, isolation, and confusion. Every contradiction, every denial of reality, is meant to erode your certainty and make you dependent on their version of the truth. You may start apologizing for things you haven't done, questioning decisions you've made confidently, and seeking validation for thoughts that should never require approval. That inner turmoil is precisely the power they crave, but once you identify it, once you name it, the cycle of doubt begins to break. You regain clarity, and with clarity comes the ability to respond rather than react. Your mind, which was once a battlefield, becomes a fortress. Recognizing gaslighting is empowering because it allows you to separate fact from manipulation, your perception from their agenda. You begin to document your experiences mentally, to trust the evidence of your senses, and to reaffirm your truth even in the face of relentless denial. This is a radical act of courage. Every time you refuse to internalize the distortions, every time you assert your reality with quiet confidence, you strengthen the neural pathways that support resilience, clarity, and self-trust. You are building an unshakable foundation, brick by brick, thought by thought, that cannot be dismantled by deception or control. The emotional reward of seeing through gaslighting is profound. You reclaim your sense of self, your autonomy, and your dignity. You no longer feel manipulated, confused, or undermined in the presence of someone who thrives on distortion. Instead, you feel grounded, centered, and unshakable. The confidence you gain is not just about standing firm in the face of deception. It is about understanding that your mind is your strongest asset. No one can take that away unless you allow them to. Every acknowledgement of your truth, every moment of clarity, is a victory that strengthens your inner armor and frees your spirit. Living free from the influence of gaslighting transforms your relationships, your decisions, and your life. You are no longer bound by the invisible chains of manipulation. You approach every interaction with discernment, awareness, and self-respect. Your mind becomes a lens that sees clearly, cutting through confusion, doubt, and distortion. You respond from alignment with your values, not from fear or uncertainty. The power of recognizing gaslighting is not just in surviving it, it is in thriving beyond it, building a life where your truth is unassailable, your confidence unshakable, and your emotional freedom absolute. You emerge not just stronger, but wiser, awake, and fully empowered to protect your peace and claim your life. Another sign of an evil person is their consistent pattern of deceit. They lie not occasionally, but as a way of life, bending reality to suit their needs. These lies are not harmless. They are carefully crafted to manipulate, confuse, and control. They warp the truth, making you question what is real and what is false, and in doing so, they create a world where you are never fully certain of your footing. This uncertainty is their playground. It drains your confidence, erodes your trust in your own judgment, and leaves you vulnerable to influence. Recognizing deceit as a deliberate strategy is liberating because it allows you to stop giving power to lies and start reclaiming your clarity and self-respect. Deceit works because it appeals to assumptions, hopes, and expectations. It exploits your belief in honesty, your faith in consistency, and your desire for fairness. When someone lies repeatedly, they create a distorted reality where truth and falsehood blur. You may find yourself rationalizing behavior, excusing contradictions, or searching for hidden meanings in words that were intended to mislead. This mental effort is exhausting, and it is exactly the trap they want you to fall into. Every lie is designed to shift your attention, redirect your energy, and destabilize your emotional equilibrium. The moment you understand this, the moment you see lies for what they are, you begin to step out of the chaos and regain control over your mind and your feelings. Understanding deceit also empowers you to prioritize action over reaction. Instead of reacting to every falsehood, you learn to observe patterns, verify facts, and trust evidence over claims. You no longer need to expend endless energy deciphering truth from fiction in real time. Your awareness becomes your armor. Each time you challenge a distortion, each time you refuse to internalize a lie, you reinforce your authority over your own perception. You train yourself to see beyond the surface, to detect the inconsistencies, and to recognize when someone's words serve their agenda rather than reality. This clarity transforms your interactions. You move from being manipulated to being discerning, from being confused to being confident, from being controlled to being in command of your own experience. The emotional strength gained from recognizing deceit is profound. It allows you to reclaim your inner peace and guard your emotional energy. You are no longer swept into unnecessary drama, guilt, or anxiety caused by someone else's manipulation. You stand firm, anchored in the truth of your experience and the clarity of your perception. This is a radical form of empowerment, one that is not dependent on changing the other person, but on transforming your own ability to see, understand, and act with precision. Living free from the influence of deceit changes everything. You are no longer a passive observer of manipulation. You are an active participant in your life. Your confidence deepens, your intuition sharpens, and your decisions align with reality rather than distortion. Each lie you detect and refuse to internalize strengthens your resilience and fortifies your sense of self. You begin to navigate relationships, challenges, and opportunities with an unwavering clarity that protects your energy, your integrity, and your power. By seeing deceit clearly, you build a life grounded in truth, fortified by discernment, and guided by the unshakable strength of your own awareness. A defining trait of an evil person is their lack of empathy. They cannot or will not feel the depth of your pain, the weight of your struggles, or the sincerity of your intentions. Their vision is narrow, focused entirely on themselves, their desires, and their agenda. This absence of empathy allows them to act without conscience, to manipulate without remorse, and to harm without hesitation. It creates a cold, calculating energy that can leave you feeling unseen, unheard, and profoundly isolated. Recognizing this is transformative because it frees you from the illusion that their cruelty or indifference is about you. It is about them and the emptiness they carry. When someone lacks empathy, they distort reality to suit their needs. They may exploit your kindness, twist your generosity, or dismiss your emotions as insignificant. Their actions are not random. They are strategic, designed to maintain control and superiority. You may catch yourself trying to rationalize their behavior, to understand their perspective, or to find reasons for their cruelty. Every attempt to justify them is wasted energy. The clarity comes when you stop searching for reasons that do not exist. The moment you accept that their capacity for care is limited or absent, you reclaim the emotional energy that has been drained by trying to win their validation or approval. Understanding the absence of empathy also strengthens your boundaries. You begin to see clearly what is safe to give and what is not. You no longer overextend yourself in hope of eliciting compassion that will never come. You learn to protect your emotional space, to distance yourself from toxicity, and to invest your energy in connections that are reciprocal, supportive, and authentic. Every boundary you enforce is an act of self-respect and a declaration of your worth. It is a shield that preserves your dignity and your peace. The emotional liberation that comes from recognizing someone's lack of empathy is profound. You stop internalizing their cruelty. You stop doubting your feelings or questioning your humanity. You understand that their inability to feel does not diminish your capacity to love, to care, or to connect. This awareness fosters strength, self-reliance, and clarity. You begin to prioritize relationships that nurture your spirit rather than drain it, that align with your values rather than undermine them, and that honor your humanity rather than exploit it. Living with this awareness transforms your life. You navigate interactions with precision, intuition, and self-assurance. You recognize the patterns of cold calculation and avoid being drawn into their web. Your focus shifts from trying to change them to building your own resilience, from seeking validation from the unfeeling to cultivating trust in yourself. Every step taken in awareness fortifies your inner world. Your energy becomes yours, your decisions guided by clarity, and your relationships chosen consciously. Understanding the lack of empathy in others is not just about survival. It is about mastering the art of protecting your peace, honoring your values, and living courageously without compromise. It is the power to walk through the world fully aware, fully present, and fully in control of the life and energy you refuse to surrender. Control is the heartbeat of an evil person's power. They manipulate situations, emotions, and people to bend the world to their will. Their tactics are subtle, often invisible until you feel trapped, second-guessing yourself, and walking on a mental tightrope. Every demand, every suggestion, every interaction is calibrated to test your limits and weaken your resistance. This need to control is not about leadership or guidance. It is about domination, an unrelenting drive to shape reality around their desires while disregarding your autonomy. Recognizing this pattern is life-changing because it allows you to see the strings they pull, and the moment you see them, you begin to cut them. A controlling person thrives on fear, doubt, and dependence. They want you uncertain, reactive, and tethered to their approval. Every criticism, every subtle judgment is designed to manipulate your emotions and steer your choices. When you become aware of this, you realize that their power exists only in the space you allow them to occupy. Control is not an inherent trait they possess. It is energy you unknowingly give. Understanding this shifts your perspective from feeling victimized to feeling empowered. You see that liberation is not about confronting them directly, but about reclaiming your freedom from within. Mastering awareness of control allows you to strengthen your boundaries and fortify your mind. You begin to recognize when someone is attempting to dictate your emotions, decisions, or beliefs. You learn to pause before reacting, to trust your judgment, and to refuse the silent manipulation that attempts to steer your life without your consent. Every boundary enforced, every step taken to maintain your autonomy is a declaration that you are no longer a player in their game. You take ownership of your choices, your emotions, and your energy. This is not just self-preservation. It is an act of courage, a conscious reclamation of the life they cannot control. The emotional reward of seeing control for what it is cannot be overstated. You feel a sense of liberation that strengthens with every interaction in which you refuse to yield. You are no longer anxious about pleasing, fearful of reprisal, or uncertain about your position. Instead, you operate from a place of clarity, confidence, and self-trust. The awareness of manipulation allows you to respond strategically, to disengage from emotional traps, and to focus your energy on what truly matters: your growth, your values, and your peace. Living free from someone else's need to control transforms your life profoundly. Your relationships become genuine, grounded in respect rather than coercion. Your choices are guided by your vision rather than external pressure. You reclaim time, energy, and emotional bandwidth that were once siphoned by manipulation. You learn to navigate the world with discernment, confidence, and a fierce sense of self-respect. Recognizing and rejecting control is not a defensive move. It is a declaration of sovereignty. You are the architect of your life, the guardian of your mind, and the master of your energy. Every action taken in awareness strengthens your freedom, sharpens your focus, and amplifies your courage to live without compromise, fully aligned with your truth and unshakably in command of yourself. A terrifying hallmark of an evil person is their ability to manipulate guilt. They understand the human heart deeply enough to twist it, to make you carry burdens that are not yours, to feel responsible for their choices, their failures, and even their emotions. This manipulation is invisible, silent, and devastatingly effective. You may begin to question your own morality, your intentions, or your worth because they have convinced you that their happiness, their stability, or their satisfaction rests on your compliance. The weight of this false responsibility can be crushing, but once you recognize it, the liberation that follows is immense. Guilt is a weapon precisely because it attacks your sense of identity and your connection to your values. It makes you doubt yourself, your instincts, and your capacity to set boundaries. When someone uses guilt as a tool, they make you bend to their desires, surrendering your power quietly, almost without noticing. But awareness changes everything. Seeing the manipulation for what it is allows you to reclaim your moral center. You realize that your responsibility is your own actions, your own intentions, and your own growth, not the emotions or choices of someone who wields guilt to dominate. This understanding is not just intellectual. It resonates deep in your body, releasing tension, anxiety, and the weight of unjust blame. Recognizing guilt manipulation strengthens your ability to respond with clarity rather than reaction. You no longer accept blame that is not yours, nor do you feel compelled to compensate for someone else's irresponsibility. You begin to pause, to breathe, to evaluate whether the feelings they invoke are your truth or their projection. Every time you refuse to internalize false guilt, you exercise your freedom, reinforcing your boundaries and building resilience. You are learning to honor your conscience without surrendering it to the strategic designs of another person. The emotional power gained from understanding this form of manipulation is extraordinary. You feel lighter, more centered, and more capable of authentic interaction. Your decisions are guided by integrity rather than coercion, by self-respect rather than fear. Each step away from imposed guilt strengthens your confidence, sharpens your discernment, and fortifies your ability to love and care for others without being exploited. You become immune to the subtle and corrosive pull of emotional coercion, and in that immunity lies profound freedom. Living with awareness of guilt manipulation transforms your relationships and your inner world. You interact with honesty and courage without the shadow of fear or obligation hanging over every choice. You reclaim energy that was spent defending, justifying, or appeasing. You move through life with a sense of purpose, grounded in your own principles rather than the demands of someone seeking control. Recognizing the power of guilt as a weapon allows you to choose compassion with clarity, generosity without compromise, and connection without surrendering your autonomy. Every moment spent aligned with this awareness is a victory, a reclaiming of your peace, your agency, and your unshakable sense of self. Deception is the silent force an evil person wields most skillfully. They twist truth, hide intentions, and construct a reality that serves them while obscuring yours. Every word may seem sincere, every action calculated to mislead, and every promise designed to bind you closer to a vision that exists only in their mind. The danger lies not in the obvious lies, but in the subtle distortions that make you question your perception, doubt your judgment, and second-guess your instincts. Recognizing deception is transformative because it awakens you to clarity, allowing you to see through the masks and illusions that were designed to trap your trust. Deception thrives on the cracks in our self-confidence, feeding on uncertainty, fear, and hope. When you begin to notice inconsistencies, half-truths, or contradictions, your mind may try to rationalize them, to believe in the facade, because believing is easier than facing the reality of manipulation. But the courage to confront these illusions is the first step toward reclaiming your life. Awareness of deception is a lens that sharpens perception, strengthens discernment, and empowers you to act with precision rather than reaction. Every lie recognized is a boundary reinforced, a moment of clarity earned, and a step toward freedom from the control that seeks to dominate your mind. The skill of seeing deception requires trust in yourself. You learn to pause before accepting narratives, to question motives without judgment, and to observe patterns rather than isolated incidents. You strengthen the ability to differentiate between genuine intention and crafted illusion. This is not cynicism. It is wisdom. It is a deliberate cultivation of perception, an investment in your mental and emotional autonomy. The more attuned you become, the less power deception holds over you, and the more power you reclaim for yourself. Understanding the nature of deception is liberating. It frees you from unnecessary guilt, self-doubt, and confusion. You no longer expend energy trying to reconcile truth with falsehood or to seek validation from someone who manipulates reality to serve themselves. Your mind becomes a fortress of clarity, your heart a source of unwavering judgment, and your intuition a trusted guide. The ability to detect dishonesty allows you to interact with others from a place of confidence, rather than fear or uncertainty. It enables you to act decisively, protect your values, and maintain the integrity of your life in the face of calculated manipulation. Living with this awareness reshapes your interactions and fortifies your inner world. You cultivate relationships rooted in transparency, trust, and mutual respect rather than illusion. You no longer bend to the false narratives that attempt to control your perception or emotions. Your energy, once drained by navigating deceit, is now available for growth, creativity, and authentic connection. Recognizing and confronting deception is not merely about survival. It is about mastering the art of discernment, honoring your truth, and living fully awake. Each time you see clearly, each time you refuse to be misled, you reclaim a piece of your power, reinforcing the foundation of a life governed by clarity, self-respect, and unshakable awareness. Control is the heartbeat of an evil person's influence. It is subtle, invasive, and often invisible until you notice the threads that tie your decisions, your emotions, and even your thoughts to their will. They exert power not through force alone, but through manipulation, coercion, and an uncanny understanding of human vulnerability. The struggle against this kind of control is not external, it is internal. It begins in your mind, in your awareness, in the realization that no one has the right to dictate your reality, your choices, or your value. Recognizing control is the first act of rebellion, and rebellion here is not defiance for its own sake, it is the reclaiming of your freedom, your agency in your life. Those who seek to control exploit the natural human desire for connection, approval, and belonging. They disguise domination as care, concern, or protection, making you feel dependent on their judgment, validation, or presence. You may begin to question your instincts, adjust your behavior, or silence your own voice in order to maintain peace or earn approval. But awareness dismantles the illusion. Realizing that control is being exercised allows you to draw boundaries, reclaim your choices, and cultivate independence. Every refusal to bend under manipulation, every decision made in alignment with your own truth is a step toward inner liberation. Control thrives on fear and uncertainty. The more uncertain or anxious you feel, the more power a controlling person wields over you. Understanding this dynamic is transformative because it gives you the tools to fortify your mind and your heart. You learn to trust yourself, to rely on your judgment, and to affirm your right to autonomy. You become aware of the subtle ways someone may attempt to influence your emotions, actions, and decisions, and in that awareness, the grip they hold weakens. Each recognition of manipulation strengthens your confidence, sharpens your discernment, and reinforces the foundation of self-respect. Freedom from control is not merely the absence of coercion, it is the presence of self-mastery. It is the courage to act in alignment with your values, the wisdom to see when influence is unhealthy, and the strength to protect your boundaries without guilt or hesitation. As you cultivate this awareness, every choice becomes an assertion of power, every boundary a declaration of self-worth, and every moment of resistance a reinforcement of your inner authority. You begin to operate from a place of clarity, grounded in your own principles rather than in the shifting expectations of someone who seeks to dominate. Living with this clarity transforms not just your relationships, but the very essence of your experience. You engage with others authentically, without fear, without compromise, and without losing yourself in their agenda. The energy once spent navigating manipulation is redirected toward growth, purpose, and meaningful connection. Recognizing control is a revelation. It is the understanding that no external force can define your value, dictate your path, or diminish your spirit unless you allow it. Every conscious step away from their influence, every act of self-affirmation, builds resilience, fortifies your inner strength, and reclaims the freedom that is your birthright. In this reclamation lies true power, the power to live awake, fully aligned, and unshakably free. Emotional manipulation is the invisible weapon of an evil person. It seeps into your thoughts, shapes your feelings, and bends your reality without leaving a visible mark. It preys on empathy, kindness, and the natural human desire to resolve conflict and nurture connection. At first, it may appear subtle, a slight guilt, a soft warning, a careful word meant to provoke doubt, but over time it infiltrates every corner of your mental and emotional landscape. Recognizing emotional manipulation is not an accusation, it is an act of self-preservation, a declaration that your feelings, your mind, and your soul belong to you and you alone. Manipulation thrives on vulnerability. When you are tired, stressed, or uncertain, the manipulator senses it and moves in, offering solutions that serve their agenda, not yours. They exploit your desire for approval, your fear of rejection, and your longing for harmony. But the power to resist exists within you, often dormant until you consciously awaken it. Each time you identify manipulation, each time you refuse to surrender your emotions to someone else's agenda, you reclaim a part of yourself. Emotional mastery begins with awareness, and awareness is a muscle you can strengthen. The challenge lies in the subtleties, the carefully crafted words, the selective truths, the emotional triggers designed to create dependence, doubt, or fear. Learning to recognize these patterns is transformative. It is the process of building mental and emotional immunity. of distinguishing your feelings from the influence of another, and of asserting the truth of your inner reality. You learn to pause, to question, to observe not just what is said, but how it is said, and why. In that pause, clarity emerges, boundaries solidify, and the manipulator loses the power to shape your emotional world. Emotional manipulation is also a lesson in courage. It forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, about the intentions of those around you, and about your own boundaries. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite it. Each moment you recognize manipulation and choose to act from strength rather than reaction, you cultivate resilience. You teach your mind and heart to operate independently, guided by principle rather than persuasion, and to honor your own emotional reality over the illusions imposed by others. Living with this awareness reshapes the way you experience connection. You begin to build relationships based on authenticity rather than exploitation. Your energy, once drained by navigating emotional traps, is redirected toward growth, clarity, and meaningful interactions. Recognizing manipulation is not an act of paranoia. It is an act of empowerment. It allows you to navigate life with intention, to protect your emotional sovereignty, and to reclaim the peace that is your natural state. Each act of recognition, each refusal to be emotionally commandeered, reinforces your independence, fortifies your inner strength, and nurtures a life lived fully awake, deeply aware, and unapologetically aligned with your own truth. Deception is the silent engine of an evil person's power. It is not always loud or dramatic. Often it whispers in half-truths, hidden agendas, and carefully constructed illusions. Deception thrives on your trust, your optimism, and your natural belief that people are fundamentally good. But when truth is twisted, distorted, or withheld, your perception of reality begins to shift, and the world around you feels unstable. Recognizing deception is not about becoming cynical. It is about sharpening your awareness, reclaiming clarity, and refusing to be led astray by falsehoods designed to exploit your mind and your heart. The danger of deception is its subtlety. It rarely arrives as a blatant lie. It creeps in through omission, exaggeration, or calculated ambiguity. The manipulator's goal is not merely to mislead. It is to control the narrative, to shape your decisions, and to keep you dependent on their version of reality. This is why awareness is critical. Awareness acts as a shield, illuminating hidden intentions and empowering you to see through the smoke and mirrors. Each time you pause, question, and investigate the truth behind words and actions, you take back power that has been quietly siphoned from you. Deception also preys on hope and desire. When someone presents you with promises, visions, or opportunities that align with your dreams, but withhold critical truths, they create a subtle trap. You feel drawn, compelled, even excited, while the manipulator benefits from your blind faith. Recognizing this dynamic is transformative because it teaches discernment, the ability to distinguish between what serves you and what serves someone else. You begin to trust your instincts, rely on evidence rather than assumption, and anchor yourself in reality rather than illusion. Each act of clarity strengthens your judgment, fortifies your resilience, and diminishes the influence of deception. Confronting deception is also an act of courage. It requires honesty with yourself about what you see, what you believe, and what you will allow into your life. It demands that you stop rationalizing inconsistencies, stop ignoring warning signs, and start honoring the truth that resonates within you. Courage in the face of deception is not about confrontation or anger. It is about steadfastness, about refusing to let your mind be hijacked by someone else's manipulation. It is about holding your ground in your own perception of reality, refusing to compromise your clarity for the comfort of illusion. Mastering the recognition of deception transforms your experience of the world. You engage with people more intentionally, communicate more clearly, and make decisions rooted in truth rather than manipulation. The mental energy once spent navigating uncertainty is now channeled into growth, wisdom, and meaningful action. Understanding deception is not a burden, it is a gift. It allows you to reclaim your mental and emotional sovereignty, to live with clarity, and to cultivate relationships that are authentic and mutually respectful. Each truth you recognize, Each falsehood you see through is a step toward freedom, the freedom to navigate life confidently, to act with precision, and to protect your inner world from the quiet, corrosive power of lies. Control is the weapon that evil people wield with precision. It is subtle, relentless, and designed to make you question your own strength, your own decisions, and even your own reality. Control is rarely about overt commands or harsh domination. It is about shaping your environment, your choices, and your perceptions without ever raising suspicion. It creeps into your life through suggestions, insinuations, and carefully timed interventions, making you feel as though your actions are your own, while in truth, they are quietly guided by someone else's agenda. Recognizing this pattern is not just important, it is vital. The moment you become aware of someone attempting to control you, you reclaim your freedom. Awareness itself becomes an act of resistance, an assertion that your mind, your heart, and your life are not available for manipulation. The psychology of control is deeply rooted in fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of loss, fear of chaos. These fears can make you compliant, hesitant, and vulnerable. An evil person knows this and exploits it with precision. They test boundaries, introduce uncertainty, and create dependence, all while maintaining a facade of care, logic, or charm. But here's the truth. Fear loses its grip the moment it is observed. When you identify control tactics for what they are, you neutralize their power. You learn to respond consciously rather than react unconsciously, to make decisions based on your values rather than on another person's coercion. Each act of discernment weakens the manipulator's influence and strengthens your own authority over your life. Control also manifests through isolation. The more they can limit your perspectives, opinions, or sources of support, the easier it becomes for them to shape your reality. They may subtly turn friends, colleagues, or family members against you, or seed doubt about who you can trust. This isolation is not merely a tactic, it is a trap designed to erode confidence and self-reliance. Recognizing it is a call to action. You begin to reconnect with your own voice, seek counsel from those who truly support your growth, and establish boundaries that protect your autonomy. Every boundary you set, every reconnection you make, dismantles the web of control they have tried to weave around your life. Resisting control requires inner clarity and courage. It is not about fighting externally with anger or aggression. It is about strengthening the internal framework that governs your decisions, emotions, and interactions. Each moment you pause to assess your own motives, desires, and principles, you build a psychological armor that cannot be breached by manipulation. You reclaim the narrative of your own life, refusing to allow fear, deception, or subtle coercion to dictate your path. Control loses its potency when met with awareness, confidence, and unwavering commitment to your own values. Mastering the awareness of control transforms your world. You move through life with intentionality, making choices rooted in truth rather than influence. Relationships become conscious and reciprocal, not imbalanced and exploitative. Your energy, once drained by the constant need to navigate hidden agendas, is now invested in growth, achievement, and fulfillment. Recognizing and resisting control is a declaration of sovereignty. It is a promise to yourself that your life will be guided by your own vision, your own principles, and your own strength. Each act of resistance, each assertion of autonomy is a step toward liberation, a step toward living fully and fearlessly in the truth of your own power. Lies are the silent chains that bind your mind before anyone ever touches your body. They start small, seemingly harmless, almost imperceptible. A distorted truth here, an omission there, a subtle twist of reality that makes you doubt your own perception. At first, you might dismiss it, believing the person has your best interest at heart, but the pattern grows, and with each lie, the foundation of trust erodes. Lies are powerful because they prey on your desire to believe, to see the good in people, and to assume honesty in those around you. They manipulate your empathy, exploit your hope, and leave you questioning what is real and what is fabricated. Understanding this is liberating. Recognizing the subtle craftsmanship of deceit gives you the power to see clearly, to reclaim your clarity, and to protect your mind from manipulation. The danger of lies is not just in the words themselves, but in the emotional whirlpool they create. When someone repeatedly misleads you, they induce confusion, frustration, and self-doubt. You may find yourself apologizing for reacting to falsehoods, second-guessing your instincts, and even blaming yourself for the consequences of their deception. Evil people know that confusion is a tool. It weakens your judgment, makes you more compliant, and keeps you tethered to their narrative. But here is the truth. Clarity is your greatest defense. Each time you confront falsehood with observation, each time you question inconsistencies rather than blindly accept them, you are reclaiming your mental sovereignty. Lies lose their power the moment you refuse to internalize them, the moment you anchor yourself in truth. Deception thrives because it is often disguised as care, concern, or guidance. A lie wrapped in the language of advice or protection is seductive. You begin to believe that the person's version of reality is aligned with your own well-being, that their distortions are necessary for your growth. The manipulation becomes almost invisible, and yet it is deadly. Recognizing the mask is crucial. Understanding that not every word of guidance is rooted in benevolence allows you to differentiate between truth and manipulation. Every time you challenge these distortions, analyze intentions, and prioritize your own truth, you step out of the web of deceit and move into the realm of conscious empowerment. Resisting lies demands both vigilance and courage. It requires that you confront uncomfortable realities and accept that not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well. It requires that you trust your instincts, verify facts, and refuse to allow emotional manipulation to dictate your perception. Every lie you detect, every false narrative you dismantle, strengthens your ability to discern reality from illusion. This skill is not just defensive, it is transformative. It empowers you to build relationships rooted in honesty, make decisions based on reality, and cultivate a life free from the invisible chains of deception. Mastering the recognition of lies transforms your mind and your life. You begin to see the world with unclouded eyes, to navigate relationships with informed awareness, and to invest your energy in connections that uplift rather than diminish. The liberation that comes from truth is profound. It is the freedom to act without hesitation, the confidence to trust yourself, and the courage to walk away from toxic influence without fear. Lies lose all their potency when met with awareness, discernment, and an unwavering commitment to your own reality. Each act of seeing through deceit is a step toward mental sovereignty, a step toward living with clarity, power, and unshakable inner strength. Control is a weapon that the manipulative wield with precision, often so subtle that you do not even realize you are under its influence.